Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com. Well, it seems that CPO is reboxing or boxing or deboxing or reissuing boxes. No, they're reboxing some of their sets of interesting orchestral music, and we're going to cover all of them as they come out because this is some really good stuff. And here's the first of them, the Symphonies by Franz, Ignaz, Beck. Now, these were all issued singly and as a set, and we talked about them at the time, or I did back on ClassicsToday.com. You can go and have a look at reviews there if you're curious. This features La Stagione, Frankfurt, under Michael Schneider, a period instrument group that plays them very well. Now, Franz Ignaz Beck was really a major composer of the early classical period. He lived from 1734 to 1809. It's exact contemporary of Haydn. He was only 2 years younger, and he died in the same year that Haydn did. But most of his music is lost. He was a composer of the Mannheim School. He was trained under Stamitz, and he wound up eventually in Bordeaux, where he ran the opera house and the theaters and composed supposedly huge amounts of theatrical and sacred music, but most of that is lost. But we do have his earlier symphonies. The latest of them date from about, or were published in 1766. So we're talking about the onset of, say, Haydn's Sturm und Drang period was around then. You know, he was just getting settled in Esterhazy and was starting to churn out his symphonies, and his style was evolving rapidly. And Beck was really comparable to Haydn's middle period or early middle period. And all we have of him are a bunch of symphonies, Opus 1 and Opus 3 and 4. I'm not sure about Opus 2, if that's Symphonies 2, probably. Anyway, there are 12 symphonies here. Each opus has 6 works, and they are really, really terrific pieces. They use all kinds of interesting motivic development, as Haydn was working on as well. The D minor symphony, particularly in Opus 3, or G minor, pardon me, in Opus 3, is in some element of cyclical form. It has some thematic sharing between movements. He conceives his symphonies as individual entities. Most of them are scored for strings with horns or horns and oboes. A couple are just strings. But they are really, really lovely works. I have here, let me just show you a couple of them here. You can talk about them anyway. The booklet, by the way, contains all the original notes from the original single CD releases, which is fabulous. So you get like a lot of information. And it's so rare to see like that quality, nice sturdy box here and attractive artwork. And it's just a class act, these folks. They really are at CPO. So most of the symphonies are in 4 movements. Some are in 3. And there are no wind parts in the slow movements. They're for strings only, as was typical of Haydn's style at the time as well. You also get some shorter pieces. You get the overture to the Death of Orpheus and to L'Île Déserte, the deserted island, which was Haydn's L'Isola Disabitata, which is the same thing, Metastasio's story. And let's see, there's a melodrama, bits of a melodrama from Pandora. Well, we all know what happened with her, don't we? The D minor symphony for strings only, Opus 3, number 5, is also brilliant. These are very intense minor key works. I mean, really, we're talking Mozart, Haydn intensity, really serious minor key works. And unlike Haydn, Beck does not make reference to other musics. He's almost entirely forward-looking. Haydn was very open and integrative in his approach. Beck is more like Mozart, a little bit more hermetically sealed in his idiom, but it's a very personal and thoroughly realized idiom, let's put it that way. Symphony in F major, Opus 4, number 3, has a delicious minuet. It's called Minuetto Villanesco. Villanesco derives from the word for village. I mean, it means rural or countryside, or, it was, if you want to get into what a villanelle or a villanesca is, it was an Italian thing from Naples. It's like many terms in classical music. It has like a zillion different meanings, depending on where you are. But the basic term, and what you hear in this particular minuet, is a certain rustic quality, which is really interesting, but it doesn't sound like folk music. unlike Haydn, who would sound like folk music. You've got kind of suggestions of drone basses, and you have some stomping rhythms, but it's not quite supposedly evoking that. I mean, it's very interesting. I mean, you got to hear it. It doesn't sound like anybody else. So he was a wonderful composer, and it's great music. What can I tell you? And these are fine performances. The only quibble I have about these period instrument performances is that they do employ a harpsichord continuo, and I to my mind, to excess it sometimes in the slow movements with like repeated notes on bass lines and things like that, where they ought to just like give it a rest to create a little bit more timbral interest. But I can't argue with the intensity of the performances, the character of the performances. They're really well recorded, and the music itself is first-class music of the classical period. So if you like music of the classical period, if you've enjoyed the Haydn Symphony Crusade, if you like early Mozart, get this, because this is music that's just as good. It really is just as good. It deserves to be heard more frequently. So keep on listening, friends. Thanks for joining me. Take care.